usually one big lie doesn't usually help without thousands of little lies following right after it. That's what happens with Donald Trump. Basically, he started off with one lie, and then one lie became 30,000 lies. Um, Basically, his biggest lie was that he had won the election and won it in a landslide, which he didn't. This is what Donald Trump said at his Klan rally on January 6th, which incited the assault on the Capitol. And this was Trump's biggest lie, a brazen falsehood with momentous consequences. Um, Trump's accusation that the Democrats stole his victory, which they didn't steal the victory, they won it fair and square. It was certainly a big lie to tell, but the focus on his big lie misses something fundamental about how propaganda actually works. A leader's big lie has no power and makes little sense on its own. It has traction only if the public has been fed many, many smaller lies. It relies on a larger network of falsehoods that's told by the leader and reinforced by his government officials and compliant media. The big lie works because it's part of an established alternate belief system, an edifice of lies assembled piece by piece. Trump, who's a squatter of authoritarian intentions and tendencies, had disadvantages with respect to the foreign autocrats he so admires. He had no state media, like China's Xi Jinping. He could not rule by decree like Hungary's Viktor Orban. He had to govern and run for re-election in an open society with a relatively robust free press. Moreover, though, although he did succeed in making journalists into hate objects for many of his sycophants, but he cannot revoke or destroy the First Amendment. So Trump took a different tack, unleashing a barrage of lies common in authoritarian states but without precedent in the history of the American presidency. He told more than 30,000 lies in public, but then it was totaled up by the Washington Post's final tally, 30,573, on Twitter, at Klan rallies, and in interviews. If taken as an average, it would come up to 21 lies per day over his 4-year term of squatting. But let's break down the smaller lies that prepared Trump's sycophants to accept the big lie. Each of these was highly damaging and consequential, and most were repeated endlessly by Trump and his co-conspirators in and out of government, and replicated on social media, the right-wing TV and radio, and more. But some were not expressed directly by Trump, but they were connected to the personality cult he built. Although he did make what they call overt claims that he would save the United States, which he didn't, and pronounced that I alone can fix the country, which he destroyed it. And basically, it was an allegedly fraudulent election system among them. Personality cults enable the spread of propaganda by allowing an autocrat to forge a special bond with sycophants, one based on faith and emotion rather than reason. But put it simply, they believe and help amplify his lies because they believe in him. Indeed, Trump's claims to a unique competence to rescue America got an assist from a cadre of evangelical Christian preachers, authors, and government officials. Former White House press secretary, the fat ass Sarah Sanders, among them, who contended that he ruled by divine benediction, which he didn't, and that God installed him, which God doesn't exist, and even if God did exist, he would not pick Trump to ruin everything. And this encouraged followers to believe this encouraged the sycophants to believe that Trump's destiny was to stay in office, which no, it wasn't, and priming them from the moment when Trump asserted that a second term was rightfully his, which it wasn't. But the events of January 6th cannot be understood without the structure of blind belief and that all the small lies that supported it. And for his sycophants, Trump was a victim of the deep state and other enemies, which he wasn't, and that his re-election had been failed by their treachery. Nope, not the case. So it was up to his believers to fight back, meaning the sycophants to fix a rigged system with only one tool left to direct action. The big lie seemed convincing because Trump had been lying about American elections for years. He started drumming up suspicion about rigged elections in 2016 when it looked like he would lose to Hillary, but the ensuing 4 years of relentless propaganda aimed to erase all competence in this fundamental institution of democracy. It's not surprising that Trump's lying had a dramatic uptick in 2020 when he was campaigning for re-election during a pandemic that he basically botched with lethal results. He needed to discredit the main thing that threatened his power, the vote. He worked overtime to throw a doubt on every single aspect of voting. He told lies about dead people voting. He also told lies about fraudulent mail-in ballots. Also told lies about votes legally counted and not counted at all or invented. In his January 6th Klan speech. He falsely accused Democrats of pulling suitcases of ballots out from under a table, which that was not true anyway. He lied that the news media had declared Biden the winner, even though they still don't have any idea what the votes are. Actually, they did. They knew Biden won. Focusing only on the big lie misses the big picture. It fails to convey the scope and gravity of the institutionalized lying that was Trump's biggest weapon, and it obscures the way minds were worn down. But day after day, and by one lie after another, Trump's aim and his thesis line was to get his followers to trust him, or sycophants to basically trust him alone as the arbiter of reality, and to distrust everyone and everything else, especially the democratic system that stood in the way of his amassing sufficient power to become untouchable. It's the authoritarian way, and while Trump is now gone from the White House, millions of his sycophants still cling fiercely to his lies. But each lie deserves our attention as we seek to combat the mass disinformation that threatens our democracy. But yep.